So, good evening, everyone. We're live from Efrat. This week's Zera Shimshon class, Parshat Toldot, will be Linu the Shema. My father, whose Yortzeit is coming up this Tuesday. Bezrat Hashem, the first Yortzeit. So there's the food and the Torah should be B'schut Aliyah Shema, Rav Abraham ben Eliezer. And so this week we have there are many parts to this week's Parsha. The most famous part of it is, of course, the brachot that are given to Yaakov, and Yaakov and Esav are born. And anyway, so we get to, as part of the brachot, we're going to do, the first one is we're going to do Drush Yud Bet. We're trying to do some short ones because we're recording, and then it will go live afterwards, and it will get uploaded later. So we're going to try to do a few short ones, and we'll see based on the crowd what happens. And I think also at 9:45 they have Marav here, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what they said. I think that was what I saw. But anyway, so we'll start with Drush 12, which is on page Parshat Toldot number 12. So it's probably Shin. What do you got there?
Here we go.
Okay, Reish Pei Chet. Reish Pei Chet at the bottom there. So the first question, the first Torah we're going to do is about it kind of come right before the brachot are given. It says Yaakov, Yitzchak asks Esav to go bring him food, the special kind of food that he likes. Rivka overhears it, and Rivka says, "Don't worry about it." Tells Yaakov, "Go get two goats from from outside, and I'll prepare them the way my husband likes them." Or the way your father likes them, and she does. And it says, pasuk. It says, "Kikra Hashem Elokecha lefanai." So when Yaakov brings the meal to Yitzchak, the Yitzchak automatically responds, "How is it that you came so quickly?" Right? Yitzchak says, "Mami harta." If the pasuk reads, if I'll look it up right now, it says. Oh my God! I'm right at the right. I opened to the right page.
That's the sign of its son.
Yeah, there you go. It says, "Vayomer Yitzchak el beno mazeh mihart limtzo b'ni. Vayomer kikra Hashem Elokecha lefanai." Yitzchak says to his son, he doesn't say which son, but he says to his son, "How is it possible that you came so quickly, like to find me?" Vayomer, and whoever it is right now, it's unclear who it is. Kikra Hashem Elokecha lefanai. Right? God made it happen. Your God made it happen to me in front of me.
That's the first red flag.
Right. So anyway, most Mefarshim identify the fact that it says when he says Hashem Elokecha, that's already a red flag. Should have been a red flag for Yitzchak to say, what's going on here? How is it possible that Esav, who never really talks, but Esav is not a big fan of saying Hashem Elokecha or Hashem in general, or at least that's not what we think. So he says. Kashe, it's difficult to understand. Why would Yaakov need to say your God? Right? Lama amar amar Right? So he asks two simple questions. His questions are very, straightforward as always. His first question is, why would he have to say Elokecha? Right? Why do you say your God?
When I say Elokim,
right? Something, right? Or it should say. He could have just said. He didn't have to say Elokecha. He could have just said Yikra Hashem lefanai, right? Lefanai, excuse me. And why do you have to say Elokim at all? So he said, why didn't Yaakov just say it was or that it was God Hashem of Yitzchak who arranged the food? So the question really is, he has two simple questions, really pretty straightforward. So he says like this. It's based on a Gemara in Tamid. And it says that one who benefits from a miracle his share in the Olam Haba is considered to be taken down a notch because he benefited from a miracle in this world. So Gemara in that Gemara, the Gemara reviews or discusses a story in which the Tana Elazar Ish Birta, did not want to benefit from a miracle that occurred because either that when a small amount of wheat he bought increased many times over. Instead, he said that the bounty you should give the money to charity. Why did he do that? Because he didn't want the money. He didn't want to benefit from the charity. From the nace. Because if he benefit from the nace, it would be that he felt like his olam haba would be diminished, and he didn't want to diminish his olam haba. V'yesh lomar. The Kavanat Yaakov Aita Lashilo Hatam Lama Miher Limtzo. Right, his question was really, what was Yitzchak's question here? Yaakov's primary intention was to try to give some sort of plausible answer. Let's call it plausible deniability, if you will. Right, a plausible answer to Yitzchak as to why or how he found the food so quickly. Right? V'amar lo ki hikra Hashem. Right? Hashem arranged it. Shezeh haya b'derech nes. Omnam nitareh Yaakov pen Yitzchak lo yirtzeh lehanot mimasa nisim. Right? He said ki hikra Hashem. Right? So what did Yaakov say? He said hikra Hashem. Right? So Hashem arranged it. But what was the problem is that Yaakov was feared that maybe, potentially, Yitzchak was going to say, I don't want to benefit from a nes. Right? So as Kedamrina Parag Gimel de Tanit, as we learned in Kaf Dalet of Tanit, Havodahim Alecha Hekdesh. So he says, the Elazar of Ishbarta says that the wheat that was should be hekdesh. Lachen amar lo elokecha. Kilomar ein ze nikra nes etzlecha. Right. So he says that's why he said Yaakov tells Yitzchak elokecha, your God. He arranged it, meaning to say that for you it's not considered a miracle. So we have a question: why would it be not considered a miracle for Yitzchak? Why would Yaakov feel comfortable? And he's going to answer this question in a second. But why would he feel comfortable saying it's not your God? Okay. So meaning why to explain why the words your God? Why would that make Yitzchak calmer? I mean, right? You know, he's saying the whole answer right so far is all based on the fact that Yaakov says your God.
It's kind of like you're saying it right. Because for me it's not a miracle. I mean, for you it's not a miracle.
Right,
for me it's a miracle.
Right, but the point is, but if it was for me, it was a miracle. Meaning Yaakov, it was a miracle. Then he should have said my God. And he didn't say my God. He said Hashem Elokecha.
Hashem say in your schools.
Yeah, so
it's not a miracle because these things happen to you all the time.
So that's definitely close to where he's directing it. So he says like this: what a great mitzvah! This week we see Kibbut Av. What a nice Kibbut Av. Anyways, for those who can't see, we were watching a son serve his father, and he's serving him chulin to the right week. There he goes.
Pass me some of that red stuff.
Anyway, so he says, Sharei katav Rashi al pasuk, and he continues. He says, why would the words lifanech your God Elokecha kind of calm Yitzchak down? So he says, katav Rashi al pasuk v'nei Hashem nitzav alav. When we look at what Rashi says in later on next week's parsha, it says that I am Hashem, I am the father of Abraham and Yitzchak. I'm standing. Behold, Hashem was standing over him, like over Yaakov. Here Hashem designated his name over Yitzchak, meaning that even though Hashem doesn't generally say his name over who are still alive, he doesn't like to necessarily mention his name directly with people who are still alive. He likes to be miyached his name, meaning like to associate himself with I am Hashem, your father of Abraham, and also Yitzchak. Yitzchak didn't die yet, so why would he mention that kind of thing? So here he says the fisha kahu inav. Because Yitzchak's eyes were already kind of blinded, Hashem made it v'kalu b'bayit, and Yitzchak was kind of confined to his home. Hareu kamet, it's considered as if he was in some ways kind of dead. V'yitzara pasak menu ad kan lashano. That's what Rashi says. Yaakov is basically indicating to Yitzchak, the saying is, since you don't have a Yetzer Hara, you can eat in this world, and you can benefit from the nes, right? So that may be the reward of the olam, right? He already said to you what happened. So what he's saying is that the Zera Shimshon is saying is that Yaakov, in some ways, was considered, I don't want to say dead, but let's say he was not as alive as he used to be. And so, since he was in some ways, there were some aspects of it that he was considered not alive. So Yaakov is telling him, listen, you have the best of both worlds. Literally, he says, why do you have the best of both worlds? Because even though this is a nes, for me, I'm considering it a nes, but it's your God. Why is it your God? Because Hashem arranged it in a way that the goats were ready right away, was right there, and whatever. But since you are considered in some ways not alive anymore, you can benefit from the nes. I can't benefit from that nes. I can't. Otherwise, it's going to be considered like as if I'm diminishing my olam haba. So that's why Yaakov says to him, by adding the words "Your God Elokecha," Yaakov is reminding Yitzchak of his unique status. It's a living person who doesn't have a Yetzer Hara, right? To a degree, if it was as if Yitzchak were living in olam haba, and would have no issue benefiting from the miracle. That's why Yaakov ensured that Yitzchak would not be reluctant to eat the food because he thought he was being prepared. It was prepared through a miracle. Meaning Yitzchak would have originally. Yitzchak would say, "How is this possible that you came so quickly?" So Yaakov says to him, "Your God prepared it." What does that mean, your God? So in this way, the Zera Shimshon is hinting to the fact that Yaakov was reminding Yitzchak that he's got the best scenario. He gets the benefit from the nace that Hashem provided in this situation, and you don't have to worry about the fact that your world to come, your olam haba, is going to diminish, because most people in this world, when a nace comes to them, it's considered, their olam haba is somewhat diminished. But because he was in this unique situation where he literally is living in both worlds, literally living in two worlds. So Yaakov was reminding Yitzchak. Now he says,
what was the nace?
The nace was that the food came right that quickly.
One second. If, let's just say, kvitza sedera,
right?
Some of the mamash l'malam and like you jump from one side of the canyon and
right.
to the other, like famous rabbis. Okay, there's a nisim, but like for example, the fact that by Avram, when he instead of shechting Yitzchak, there was a ram there.
That's a nace.
But that's that kind of nace. Right. You could call it could be closed as a coincidence. So you don't need to come onto all this.
Right. So he definitely
it's a bit like this.
Right. I think there is something to be said to the fact that it could be like, listen, there were goats right now. They were shepherds in some way. There are goats right there. Right. So the only question with that is, how could it be that Rivka could have had the food shechted and everything turned around so quickly? Meaning, it's clear that the Torah is not saying asking the question unless there was a real reason for it. Right. Meaning that there was some sort of, either it was, it happens to be that Rivka just made the chulent right, 2 days, like a minute ago, and now it doesn't necessarily go well with the conversation, especially since he tells Esav, go out and hunt for me and everything. So the fact that he tells Esav to go out and all of a sudden the food is right there already. Okay. So he's saying, but even if you don't want to call it a nace per se, even if we say it's not a nace per se, like this, like you said, like a massive nace, we could still say there is some sort of arrangement, orchestration of something that definitely occurred. So he says, let's say, and here he says, in truth, Yaakov, the commentary here says, in truth, Yaakov didn't get the food miraculously. He was saying here, rather it was simply provided to him by Rivka. Like there was no real nace. Like you said, it's Rivka prepared the food, pretty quickly. Once the goat is skinned, once the thing is ready, she throws it in the fire, whatever it is, and it's good to go. Right? So now he says, and he says, Zera Shimshon now is going to resolve how Yaakov could have insinuated that it was miraculously arranged and derives a practical lesson.
Assuming they didn't salt or meat in it.
Right, exactly what I'm saying, you move pretty quickly. So he says, in the course of our discussion, which is very rare for the Zera Shimshon to go right and say that we should learn a lesson from it, which is very rare. But Shekol Adam Yeshul Hakir B'chol Masav, he says, every person should recognize in all his experiences Niflaot Maaseh Hashem, that wonders of the acts of Hashem. There's nothing a person has the ability to do by himself, if not for the kindness of Hashem. As it says in the Chulin, that a person doesn't move his finger, let alone anything else, right? Unless it was decreed upon from above. Right. Even when every movement, whenever a person makes a profit or he makes some sort of, he's successful in something, he should never say that it came through his own efforts. Rather, he has to recognize that it's chastei Hashem. If he gets, becomes famous for it, he should not say that his wisdom caused it. In short, what do we say from here? We see that the hand of Hashem, even in his ordinary day-to-day experiences, we really have to acknowledge Hashem's hand in everything that happens. This is what Yaakov meant to say, that Hashem, your God, arranged it for me. Haraya, and the proof is Yaakov lo hikra lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu klum. Right? Yaakov didn't really anything. Hashem didn't do anything. It didn't arrange anything. Raku alach likach shein gedim. What did he do? He really went to take 2 goats, and prepare them quickly. Right? He takes these small kids, like these small young goats. What happens? These small young goats, They don't need a lot of time to cook, right? You put them on the grill, you could put them done, probably within an hour, they could be ready. Right? So you didn't need to go out to the field and hunt, which Esav was going to do. Then we see that Yaakov maybe could have been, potentially, God forbid, I don't know how we can understand this, but he says speaking falsely when he said that Hashem had arranged the food to him. Right? Hashem didn't arrange anything. There was no real nace, like you said. It was only that these goats were so young, they didn't take a lot of time. Rather, Yaakov was certainly meant to say. We can't say, God forbid, that Yaakov was trying to say that it was no big. Like when you say it's no big deal. Like in in an hour you got someone asks for something, and an hour later someone says to you, "Oh, thanks so much. That was really fast." Like it's no big deal, right? God forbid would we say that Yaakov was saying that that's what happened. The practicality of it is that these two young goats were available. So he says, then what are we saying? That why do we have to add Hashem's name into it? So he says, Nidgal Ela. Rather, Yaakov certainly meant to say, "Nitgalgel hadavar b'ratzon haborei v'chasdo." Right? Shani azmin lecha machalcha. So he says, rather, Yaakov was really meant to say what his intention was that everything here took place through Hashem's ratzon and through his chesed, meaning through his kindness. He was able to through his kindness. I'm the one that was going to be preparing your food, meaning I'm the one to bring you the food, not necessarily prepare it. And therefore I brought it to you quickly. Because Hashem, your God, arranged it for me. For me and not my brother. Meaning, although Yitzchak would understand that Yaakov was saying that Hashem performed a miracle by helping him trap the animal so quickly, that was not Yaakov's intent. Rather, Yaakov really wanted to do is recognize that even these small little occurrences are a result of Hashem's chesed. He meant that Hashem had performed a chesed to him to arrange that everything would be, that basically he arranged it to happen that these small young goats would be readily available so that I can cook them quickly, and so therefore what's going to happen? I'm going to get the brachot, and therefore I'm going to get the brachot first, and not my brother who was maybe meant to happen. And it was on account of the fact that Hashem, basically, he's saying, what the Zera Shimshon is saying is that this whole chain of events, when you look at it in the moment, it's hard to see Hashem's hand. But what Yaakov was telling Yitzchak is everything happens for a reason. And he says the reason that the two goats were readily available, and my mother was willing to cook them quickly, and it said, every step of the way, it shows that Hashem was really intended for me to get the brachot and not my brother. But he never mentions Esav or my brother. He never mentions that. Try to be careful. And he says at the end, which I think is nice, is what he says is at the end that Yaakov is really trying to do is recognize. He recognizes that all of this was through the direction of Hashem, the orchestration of Hashem. And he mentions, it's very clear, like I said, the Zera Shimshon almost never does this. He never tells us what we should do. He says here we should also recognize that everything that happens to us comes to the direction of Hashem, and we should not take credit for any of our accomplishments.
Okay, perfect.